Hello and welcome to Universalis or Europe Universalis. Anyways, the game where you essentially are playing a massive strategy game across the entire world, though most people don't probably play Dominations. I ran around asking a lot of you guys, as in my friends, on which one did you want to play. And since I decided, hey, why not just jump into it, I just chose one of my selections, which was basically only one person. My friend was like, oh yeah, we gotta totally play as them, so I was like, okay, fine. Try playing as Ming. So, with Ming, you're basically looking at China, sort of. I mean, a sort of like much smaller version of China. And one of the supposed issues with it is that they have a massive amount of unrest, supposedly. I don't see it, but they do. It probably has a lot to do with the mandate they have. Now, China has an interesting government at this point in time in history. The main interesting part about it is that it has a government called like the Celestial. Where is it? They're not going to tell you. No. Okay, but here it is somewhere. There, Celestial Empire. The Celestial Empire proclaims its rulers to be the sons of heaven who are born to govern the country in divine rights. Yay! But the problem that comes with this is how much this costs. So originally, for people who played this game in the past, originally the entire game itself was very much on the lines of like, okay, every group had their own technology, every group had their own sort of like growth rate. So when you played as like China or something, you'd be part of a technological group called the Eastern Group, or the Chinese Group. I'm pretty sure it's the Eastern Group. And this tech group had a penalty to the tech speed of which Europe was going at. This basically meant that you would pay more, or it would take you longer to get to the same point that Europe would generally be at. While, like, let's say you're playing as the Native Americans in North America, where you land up having almost 200% tech issue, you basically would get crushed by the Europeans by the time they get there, which is why, for the most part, many people would not jump on to playing those things. I totally would. I think it'd be a really cool multiplayer where you just play with a whole bunch of different people trying to survive in North America and South America from the Europeans, but generally speaking, Europe will be like Tech 15 and you'll be basically Tech 5, and that's just how it worked with natives. Well, when it came to Eastern, like the whole, China, Japan, all these people, Mongolia, Yuran, Zhangzhou, which I probably just destroyed, these groups aren't as bad. So, like, if Europe's at 15, they'll probably be around 13, which isn't so bad. I mean, you just need a lot of people. Like, that's what Ming is all about. A lot of people. So, the basics of this game is pretty simple. The whole concept is you don't want to die. Like in any game, you don't want to die. And how you don't die in this game is by making sure your country does not get destroyed. That's basically it. You can expand if you want, or you can stay a very defensive country and keep yourself limited to the grounds there. There's tons of avenues you can go to because it's a strategy game in the sense that it's very wide in many forms. So, say you wanted to just do trade. Well, there's ways to just do trade. As you can see in the economy tab, you have a rather large list of things that contribute to your income, and then you have a bunch of stuff that also contribute to your, basically, expenses. So, as in all forms of income and expenses, you have your own expense that ends up accumulating over time. So the bigger your army is, for example, the more you can put money to make sure it stays reinforced, or you can drop it, which then increases the money you make, but at the cost of your military not getting the full, swords, guns, or whatever it is you have at the time. You can also work with the corruption aspects, which did come in recently, which essentially is just anything that you would technically think could lead to the potential of changing the point of views or affecting the people paying taxes, or even to the point of powers being affected. This all comes in the concept of unbalanced research, which, if we go back to the overview here, so to speak, you can see technology. Remember I was telling you about it's a Chinese technological group. See, it was probably pretty close. And so what happens now is that they used to have all those percentages totally flying off the handle here, but now they have the institutions as well. Institutions are basically a sort of like benefit to get at the same time. You essentially get a whole bunch of different bonuses, you get a whole bunch of pretty cool stuff out there. Now, the standing problem with it is that all these things usually take place in Europe, because for the longest time, Europe was one of the major technological growing sections of the world. Sorry, I had to drink a bit. Now, with that in mind, that generally means that we're not going to be getting a lot of technology until we move our butts over there. But that's not how this game's going to go. This game is going to be basically us reclaiming the majority of what belongs rightfully to China. I don't care if there's like Nam and stuff. It all belongs to China. All of this is ours. All of it's ours. I don't care who says anything. That's how it goes. Even Korea. Korea is now going to be part of China, and I don't care what they think. Now, we will be allying with Japan, for the most part, which will, technically in some historical aspects, and even in modern day aspects, not on the greatest terms, but that's fine. And Russia is eventually going to be coming this way, which means we have to get ready for that too. Now, India isn't too much of a problem. Once we get a big enough army, we can basically consume India if we want to. India has a lot of resources, it has like spices and such, which we can use to our advantage in trading with the Europeans. Through trade, you get money. Through money, you can pay the military. The rest is pretty straightforward. Now, this little thing here is missions. Missions are basically given to you, let's say, by like, in some aspect, your council, you can think of. You can think of it like, in some aspects, your people. Missions are very important because they give you benefits. You don't necessarily need to do them all the time, but they give you benefits. For example, you can just bring your force limit up to, say, 5%, which I probably already did. This will give you a land maintenance modifier minus 10%, which means that the cost of maintaining your troops, so the soldiers you have in the front line or soldiers you just have lying around, will be 10% less than what it was. It also increases the amount of time, as you see here, it decreases it, that it takes for soldiers to be recruited into your military. Now, that is pretty cool, being that we only make 17 right now, and with the planned economy that we already have, because I recruited so many troops, it drops down to about 10, which means we have 7 extra, they call them ducats, in terms of what is called gold or whatever comes to my mind at the time. We have 7 extra more in expenses than we did originally. So we're around 10 only. We did not unpause yet. We have diplomats. Diplomats basically do interactions with all the other countries around you. So I'm thinking to myself, though that's really cool, I would much rather do something that would, be a cool beginning for this. So I'm thinking, we don't say anything Korea. Korea's gonna die. That's how it goes, right? So we want to kill Korea anyway, so it doesn't really matter. We're gonna move into conquering an entire location. So we get inspiring victory if we do this. Right now we have the Temple faction, which is basically how their government works. I'll get to it in a moment. We have the Temple faction, which is ruling. Now our goal is to kill the Dai Viet. I'm hoping that's how it's somewhat close to saying. I have no idea, but it's to kill them. We have to basically wipe them out from existence and take all of their land, which will then add them to us. Now, conquering land is not as simple as just walking in and taking a land, okay? There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So the most simplistic way to say it is that when you conquer someone's land, they don't just bow down and say, yes, this is the greatest in the world. You have to core the land. You have to take the land as your own. See, we probably got a whole bunch of cores on them now. Yeah, we did. You have to core it all. So, once we start taking all this land, we then have to integrate it, so to speak, into us. We already have other problems that are withstanding at this moment. We have religious problems. A good chunk of our people do not follow the greatness that is Confucian. So, because they don't, they have to be submitted to the right means to become this too. So that means we are going to have to be sending people to deal with this situation. Because what happens is, even though we have a large religious unity, this leads to a sort of, you can think of it as, we lose money, so to speak, because they're not following our faith. And because they're not following our faith, we get like a penalty in some areas. See? We get a penalty in some areas. 77? Jeez. Anyways, we get a penalty in some areas that will lead to, issues. So, we're going to be doing someone. I forgot where I put the religious dude for a second there. Where did it go? Sorry about all the magical yawning, it's just more on lines of breathing, I swear. It's a problem for some people. Okay, so Zen, there's a find too, which is pretty cool. You just press F if you want, or you can look for it down there. It's like the arrow. And then we just have fun writing letters. Yeah. There we go. Click on it, brings you to the location. You can see where it is. And this is where we're, changing the people to match the religion we want. This is what I was talking about. It's because they are considered heretics or heathens, depending on what you want to look at it as, they give a unrest issue, meaning that they have a higher chance of, promoting, so to speak, rebellion. After that, you have goods, which means not producing as much, and they don't give you as much tax. So as you can tell from that, you want it where your unrest is 0, which the unrest is going to grow because we're trying to change them. And since we're douchebags, we also get that. So they got +6, a +2, and a +4. Our legitimacy keeps them down on -2, and our mandate of heaven gives them -5. So right there, it's about 7. Their intolerance and that brings them up to 8, and so it's like 8.3. So they're going to basically be around 1 to 2, as they are right now, which is 1.7. It's just going to be everywhere. It's going to start murdering us consistently. Right now we're okay, but progressively it's going to be a problem, and that's one of the problems with Ming, is that we have to deal with that fact that these people are going to be an issue to us. Now, our general issue is that even though we don't want to be an enemy of Japan, we have to rival Japan. And that's a problem. Because if we don't get projected. And we need that. Where are you? Here you are. Power projection. You sort of need it. It's sort of good. It helps you out with stuff. But really, in all honesty, we don't want it. Because our goal is Allied Japan. So we'll just, bite the bullet for a moment. So we're going to press play for a moment. We didn't send out our diplomats yet. We're just going to play so we can, register all the stuff. Just pass one day. Done. Okay. So, there's many things that come into play for this game. This game is a strategy game, as I said before. Look at all these recruits. Anyways, a game is a strategy game. And so, logically, what's going to happen is that there's a lot of strategy. Don't expect huge, gigantic battles that span forever and ever and ever. This is essentially a game that you're spending either after you're done crushing a whole bunch of people, a long time waiting, so you're building up stuff, or not. There's also something to keep in mind that I don't have all of the expansions in this game. So that means, generally speaking, I don't have everything. but that's fine. I mean, the game has a lot of pretty cool stuff in it itself, but for the most part, we'll be doing a lot of zooming in and out. No, it's we just don't have all that other stuff that they generally have. I mean, geez, if we turned off all these forts, you can just look at this if you want to see. That's 10 extra, you know, ducats, which isn't really what's going to be. It's probably going to be like 5 extra ducats, but still, you know, it's still a good amount. We also have gold. So basically, there's a lot of stuff that change. The trade, which affects what I was talking about. You can have all these trade zones. But see, like, we're growing into here, which means our next trade zone we're invading is the Siam trade zone. Which, you know, okay, that's our next one we're taking down, whatever. And then we also have to take over this one here. We gotta take over this one. We're Ming. We're gonna be numbing a lot of people, you know? Taking over this. We're basically gonna be allying Japan, one of our goals. So, since we're doing that, we have to go directly to Japan itself. We don't pay attention to the war, the civil wars that are happening. We don't care. What we care about is allying to Japan. So whoever is the leader of Japan, I don't care. We cool. Now, the second part is that we have to sit here and take our time with everything. So since we don't have the benefits of, say, all the other things, see, remember, we're actually at 10. This does not account per se for the troops that are being trained. It only accounts for what's currently on the field. That's what it seems to be. With that in mind, we are at 10. So if we go to hire someone, we have to be, you know, pretty on point with it. Now, military is generally what you want to go for, because the better your military is, it's weird to say this, the better the military is, the less problems you have with other people. I mean, we start off at 4, which is fine, but the other nations will also grow on their own. So we want to have a good military. We want to make sure that our people understand that, you know, we're not screwing around. And the more your military techs go up, the more benefits you get more morale, you get better tactics. These all affect combat. Even though combat is in, you know, 3D per se, it's still something that affects you severely enough that if you don't have it, you're probably going to want it. Oh, right. There's a lot of culture things. Because we're Ming, we got a lot of different people. But basically, Chinese... We're cool with Chinese people. We just don't like everyone else. So as you see here, this 3% of the population needs to be converted to some sort of Chinese group. Because when we don't get that, it's another modifier issue. Another local unrest issue. Another manpower issue. This is all things that affect us directly because we do not get the full value. So, one of the goals that they say is that we want to remove the mandate in heaven, or we want to replace the mandate. It all totally depends on how much we have, you know? So, it really comes out of that one. The only issue that really comes in for us right now is this. This embracement cost is a pain in the butt, but we're not going to ever get most of the stuff, which means our tech is going to take a lot of time to go up. So if we're really good at military, and we suck in everything else, it's fine. So long as we can pay for our military, we should be totally legitimately fine. So we'll go for a military person. We're not going to go crazy. I mean, 3 may sound cool, but that drops us down from 10 to 7. We don't want that. So, more discipline. It's pretty cool. It gives us, like, almost nothing to have it. We get +1, and it gotta cost 14. So we'll take this dude, who's totally not Chinese, because I don't have the, the faces for it. That's cool. European people just teleport to China. It's fine. They know where it's at. Alright, so, I know I didn't do much in this episode. And that's fine. I'm just going through the general understanding for everyone. Thanks for enjoying it, at least. And hopefully the robotic magicalness isn't enough that, you know, becomes completely unbearable. In the next episode, we'll be sending out our beautiful diplomats to act as spies for other nations, and also possibly bring up friendliness, which will happen. So they're just basically be spies. we have to make sure that none of these small ones kill us. So that's how it goes. Anyways, I'll just cut this one here, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good day. Bye bye.